For the pelvic tilt practice, you will need a wall where you can bring your feet onto the wall in a moment. And you'll also need a towel or something that you can roll up like we did in the side roll. So I'm using my felt pad again. A blanket will do just fine. You won't want to use a foam roller just because it's quite a lot bigger, it's quite a lot higher, and that will bring too much extension into the spine and it won't feel very good. So grab your blanket, roll it up, and then place it beside you on the floor, right beside your hips. And then when you're ready, you're gonna lift the hips up and slide the roll under so that your sacrum is resting on the roll. So it's above your tailbone and it's below your low spine. So it's this flat part of your pelvis that's resting on the roll. And then we can just take a moment to settle. Let your feet be flat on the floor, hip distance apart. Back of the head resting on your mat. Okay. So this movement, unlike cat-cow, is going to be quite a bit smaller because we're in a different orientation and because our pelvis is resting on the surface of something. So what we're going to explore is tilting our pelvis forward and back. And so I'm exaggerating it right now. And what you can notice is my legs are really involved, my torso and my head are shifting forward and back, and my ribs are poking up. So I'm compensating in 3 ways, which is not really what we want to be doing in this movement. And in actuality, it's going to be quite subtle, almost what I call a micro movement. So you might not even see any movement, which can be also challenging when we're trying to sense it in our body. So be really gentle with yourself and just have fun exploring it. It doesn't have to be perfect. So I like to rest my hands on my pelvis so I can sense the whole structure and maybe even feel it moving. So starting from a place of ease, we're going to tilt back. So in this action, the pubic bone is moving towards the belly button, but I'm not sinking down through my belly. I want the pelvis to move around the leg bones. And you can kind of rock with it a little bit or pause in between each movement. So we're going to tilt back and then release. Tilt back and then release. So if you sense that your head is kind of shifting backwards along the floor, just come back and pause and then go a little bit smaller. We're going to keep going smaller with our movement until our head stops shifting. And if you're not sure, you can set yourself up so your head's against the wall, or you've got like a pillow or something that you can feel. So if you shift back, you can feel your head pressing into that object or shifting that object. So ideally, our torso doesn't move, but our pelvis can. So we're just finding that backward tilt. And the legs shouldn't be overly involved in this. So again, micro, teeny tiny movements, and breathe through your nose. So try it a couple times. If it's not quite there yet, don't worry. And then we'll pause. And now we're going to do the opposite movement. So now we want to do the forward tilt. So think of your bum pressing down towards the floor or slightly pressing into the roll. That's the same as our hip points moving forward or our pubic bone moving down. But we don't want to strain through our low back or flare the ribs out. So notice if you want to move your ribs in order to move your pelvis. If that happens, just pause. Let's see if we can keep the ribs quiet, and then just press down through the bum and release. Press down through the bum and release. Our head shouldn't be shifting either. I realize this is a lot to pay attention to, but just try your best. And then let that release. Let's try the opposite movement again. Tilting back, super small. Try it a few times. And then release. And then pressing the bum down, pressing the bum down. So we can try to find this movement by doing one at a time. And then if you think you've got it, you can alternate. So we're going to tilt back and then tilt forward. Tilt back and tilt forward. So it might feel like you do one and then the other. Maybe you can find a little bit of smoothness in that transition. So one kind of melts into the other. And that might be something that you explore more down the road as you gain proficiency with this movement. But the important thing is that the movement is happening through the pelvis. It's not through the ribs. It's not the body shifting forward and back or the legs engaging or pressing into the floor. And I know from experience that this can be very frustrating, but give yourself permission to move small. All right, so we've tried it a few times. Let's press into the feet, lift the hips and slide the roll out of the way, and then come back down onto your back. And just take a moment to notice what you feel. If there's been some compensation through your back, you might feel a little bit of stiffness, which is okay. Just notice that it's there. And then when you come back to this movement again later, you can adapt and maybe go a little bit smaller and see if that changes or shifts up. Now, we've just kind of reorganized how our pelvis moves. This is not something that we do on a regular basis. So it might take a while for our brain and our body to kind of integrate that. And we can help the process by grounding. So this is where the wall is going to come into play. Position yourself so you can bring your feet onto the wall and your legs are about 90 degrees. You don't have to be super close to the wall, but so that your feet can come flat and your knees are bent. And then feel into the 3 points of your feet, the center of the heel, the base of the big toe, and the base of the baby toe. And then gently press your heels into the wall and then release. Just the heels and then release. And then press just the balls of your feet into the wall and then release. And then release. Now, sensing the tripod again, press evenly through all 3 parts of your feet into the wall and then release. And you can have your hands in your hip creases, just like we did with those other movements. So those hip flexors shouldn't pop up. If they are, you're pressing too hard. As you press, if your body's shifting back, if there's a lot of movement through your torso, that means you're pressing too hard. Imagine that like you're holding like a little baby hamster under the arch of your foot. You don't want to crush that hamster. That sounds weird. But we're just looking to get the ball of the foot here and the heel. So this space in between stays soft and relaxed. And that's going to help us control how much pressure we put into the wall. So we're not pushing from the upper body. Let's see if you can keep the effort in the legs. So you're pressing from the feet. And you might feel some tension build in the legs. And that's okay. We want to keep that tension, the pressure in the legs. But the pelvis shouldn't wobble or tilt. And there shouldn't be any extraneous tension or movement up top. So I'm going to stop talking and then explore it for yourself and see what you notice. And if it's helpful, here I go talking again, compare. What does it feel like to press really hard? And then how light can you press? What's the absolute lightest? And can you do it while you're still breathing through your nose? Being gentle, being curious. And if it feels easy, you can press and hold for a couple breaths and then release. And if you notice that as you release, there's a settling kind of feeling through the back or the pelvis, maybe you've pressed too hard. Because we shouldn't have to settle, because there shouldn't be an engagement. It's just in the legs, micro movements. And then you can roll to your side. And take your time coming up. So like I said, there's kind of been a reorganization in terms of how our pelvis is moving in relation to our leg bones. So it can be common to feel a little bit lightheaded or dizzy coming up or just out of balance. And hopefully pressing the feet into the wall has helped a little bit. So take your time to come up. And I realize I'm out of frame again. But find the 3 points of your feet and feel yourself in standing. And notice what that feels like in your body. Even more so than the last practice, I can feel my pelvis in more of a neutral position. I have a lot of presence and awareness in my legs, and my upper body feels really light. And my belly feels kind of flat. I feel awesome. I don't know about you, but check in with yourself and see how you feel. If you kind of felt a little bit woozy or a little bit lightheaded, you can do the foot press again or move into a wall sit. So I'll just demonstrate that real quick, and you can use your wall. So you're going to lean against the wall, take your feet maybe a foot and a half away from the wall, and slide down just a tiny bit. The knees don't need to go past the ankles. And my head and shoulders are resting on the wall. And just let your gaze go straight ahead. Again, find the 3 points of the feet. And just rest here for a minute or two. If you come all the way down, this is a lot of effort. You don't need to come all the way down, okay? So keep it super simple. Give yourself an opportunity to ground into the legs and feet. That's going to help provide more freedom in your upper body and bring the pelvis into a more neutral position so things are flowing and connecting really nicely. All right, have fun with that one.